about essentially the tech stack of tomorrow. Um, I had a mentor, and it's very common within the IT industry to think essentially 5 years into the future, right? That's always the goal for corporate and enterprise IT. If you're running a tech stack, is you want your stack to be forward thinking 5 years, like the next cycle of IT, right? Like, because it's essentially like every you have your IT and you buy into your IT, and then it takes about 4 to 5 years, and then it ages out, and then you have to replace your IT, hardware and software generally, right? And then so generally speaking, a business goes through like 4 to 5 year cycles. So if you're 5 years ahead, you're one cycle ahead of your competition within that regard, which is like a good place to be generally, right? And then so I generally speaking try to think in terms of that. Like, what's the tech stack look 5 years from now, as opposed to what does the tech stack look like today? And then so what tech stacks look like today are pretty straightforward, right? If we go through all of these examples, they all give us the same general picture of what a tech stack looks like, right? I could click to like almost any one of these, and then they all have the same kind of like general structure where they're like it's layered, right? Like, and we're looking at layers here. So you've got plan, develop, build, test, secure, store artifacts, different things. You can call it all different things, right? And then you've got your layers within it, and then you've got your different products and like different applications that fit within the different layers of your stack. And then so your job generally as like a IT director, as like someone that's managing this tech stack, you're managing the individual layers, right? Like you're looking at this like a kind of like a geologist, right? And then looking at all of the different applications within your stack. So like your user interface, your services, your middleware, and then you look for redundancies and then making for gaps, etc. Right? And then so you're managing it based off of that approach, like kind of like a almost like an ecosystem approach, right? And then so when I think about IT 5 years from now, that general ecosystem, I think ecosystem is going to be like the key word. If there's a word that I could like ascribe to this, it's ecosystem, right? And uh, very much leaning into that, like a lot more than you would, I think, right? And then so let's dive into that. And then so for this like thought experiment, I've created this Colab notebook that we're looking at here, and I'll leave a description if anyone wants to look through the Colab notebook itself as to like what all it's in it. It's pretty straightforward, but so uh, I've envisioned this world, and we'll call it corporate IT land. And then here's like an illustration of what corporate IT land kind of looks like in my head, right? And it's these autonomous agents, and then so this is based off of a swarm-based algorithm, and then these agents are different, like you and I think of ants because with the ants they would have like different functions and different jobs, right? And then so each individual ant has its own individual job and unique job that applies to it within the business sense, and then within like the IT sense in this instance, right? Within its environment. And then so think of corporate IT land as your enterprise tech stack 5 years from now, and these little individual ants as like AI agents that will go through. And then so big thing off the top to me is that so I think that LLM models aren't a fad. Like LLM models will definitely they'll be a part of this framework, but there and they'll be essentially like the if there's like a queen of this colony, the LLM model is going to be the queen, right? Like your foundational model would be the queen in this colony, but it's the ants that are doing the work, like the workers. And then in that instance, like it's like not reliant on LLM models. Like LLM models aren't the be all end all of the framework. I guess that they'll be the kind of the literal center, right? Because they'll be the like literal brain at the center, but they're not everything that's within this framework, and that's kind of what I want to get across. And then so how I've kind of devised and what I think of corporate IT land in my head is a framework for it. And then so within this framework of corporate IT land, you've got essentially three components of it. You've got the worker class, the project class, and the queen class. And then so worker class are very straightforward. Workers are assigned to projects and they can complete tasks based on their skills. And then so each individual worker would be trained on an individual skill. And then you can think of individual workers as like individual algorithms or even individual models within this swarm algorithm, right? So if it's like a big, huge, giant corporation, then like these could each one of these like individual ants could be like 1 billion parameter models, right? And then that's one individual worker ant. Or it could be an individual worker ant is like 10 million parameters or a million parameters or 10,000 parameters, right? Like, and depending on what the function and the job is and what you need it to do, etc. And then so you go through and your resources. And then so each individual worker has skills that they're trained on, right, and that they can do. And then so you could have individual workers trained on individual parts of your business, on individual like educational subjects. Like one is a history major, one's like a science major, etc. Right, and then so yeah, or you could think of it as like individual applications. One is trained on Salesforce, one is trained on HubSpot, one is trained on Infor ERPs, one is trained on finance. And then you go through, and then it's like, yeah, I need the HubSpot worker, and I need the Salesforce worker, and then I need you guys to cooperate on this particular project, right? And then so they would go through, and then depending on the project, and then the project is essentially like a set of challenges with that have the challenges are broken up and they're like ascribed to the queen and to the workers so that they know that there's a maximum amount of resources that are applicable to the project and there's a deadline. So they're like everyone is has this reward mechanism as well, right? And so that's what you're gearing towards with this is that it's making sure that you have the rewards straightforward there. And then so the queen, her job is essentially to manage the colony, right? She creates the workers, creates the projects, assigns the workers, and assigns the workers to the projects. And then she's doing all of this and trying to optimize the colony at all times. That's essentially her job, is to do all of that. And then if we look at this from like a code standpoint, it's pretty straightforward. And then you might look at this and it's like, oh, this might be overwhelming, you know, if you don't know a lot about code. But so overall, this isn't a lot of code. It's just essentially defining the classes, right? Defining what a worker is, defining what a project is, and defining what a queen is. Exactly what we just talked about. And then giving it essentially like what their individual jobs are. And then so the queen class is the most complex, right? Because it's like two and a half times more complex or so than the other two classes because it's got a lot more that it has to manage as the queen. And then so then the queen can create workers and can create challenges and create skills. And then so this is an example of a swarm algorithm. And then so what this algorithm is in particular, like if we're looking at this code, a visualization of this code is this image in this picture that we're starting off with here, the very example, like the very reason why I start off with this picture, right? This is corporate IT land. This is the environment that all of these individual, we'll call them agents or workers, will live in, right? Like and then so for them, they interact within this environment. Within this environment, the queen is the head of the environment. She makes all the decisions. She sets all the rules. She's like the head boss. She's the CEO of corporate IT land, of these individual ants. And then within that, she manages, she gets projects that are given to her. That's how, you know, she like makes her revenue as like her business leader, right? Like she has to do something within that. And then so she's assigned projects by the corporation. And then based off of those projects, then she assigns her workers and does everything to manage and make sure that the projects are completed. And then so that's what I see this overall process is what the corporate IT tech stack will look like 5 years from now, right? So kind of envisioning that out and playing that out more, like a little bit like more as to what does that look like. I think big thing is that like, so you hear a lot about like coding is going to go away, things like that. I think that there's some truth to that, right? This isn't going to go away. Like you're going to need corporate IT land to exist. You're going to need like someone and an architect and an engineering level to be able to code on some level corporate IT land. Like it's like that's just not like at least not within 5 years gonna go away. Like plain and simple, right? So like 100% is code going to go away? 100% no. Like like that's a pipe dream. This is going to exist, but for the average person's like 98% of people within this, they're going to be interacting directly with the queen, and then like they don't need to interact with the queen via code. The queen is an LLM model in this instance, right? And then so you can interact with the queen via prompts, and then that's essentially how that plays out there. And then you just you can manage tasks, and you can change, and you can update, and you can refine tasks based off of that, and then you can modify your environment based off of the queen. So to me, it's essentially like again, like right now, and like normal, like what we're looking at is like if I'm an IT director currently right now in my world. Without corporate IT land, and like today, corporate IT land is this, right? Where my job is 100% managing the environment and everything within the environment. Like my goal and my job is tedious every day because I'm managing all these individual systems within the environment and then trying to get all of these individual systems to work together, right? And then like that's like I'm like essentially gluing all of this together every day, and that's my job. And then like what we're talking about here, like this in this 5 year future, is that tedium that all of that like minutia is gone, right? Like all of that has been passed to the queen in this instance, and then like the queen is managing that environment. So my job is more interacting with the queen, working with the queen, making sure that that's all functioning. I have essentially like a partner within this environment then, right? And then the only big difference is that it's more of like a shift towards like actual environments. And I think like so that's the thing I'll end this on is like this concept of corporate IT land, right? Like, and I come to that very specifically, like, not just to like frame this as like a cool framing tool for all of this, but it's more so like, so within AI, there's more and more research around embodied versus disembodied learning. There's a lot of studies around this and a lot of different areas that you can point to. The one that I always think about is a study in the 1960s in which it's like the disembodied cat or the passive kitten versus the active kitten. And then so really famous experiment in the 1960s, there's two kittens that are born. And then from like the second that they're born, they're placed in this contraption where essentially one of the kittens can control the environment, and then they can run around, and it's like all mirrors and things, but they run around in the environment and they control that. And then the other kitten is like in a carriage that's being pulled by the other kitten, and so they can only look at the mirrors as everything goes by. That's all they do, right? And that's their interaction with the environment. And so they do this for a few weeks, and they take the cats out, and then the cat that was the passive kitten has like learning problems. Like it can't learn as well overall, and it all boils down to this specifically, like this giving these agents environments. And then so as we talk about agents and we get more and more into this 5 years into the future, I think agents are going to be important. And then so within that, corporate IT land is going to be important. And if you like this type of content, please like and subscribe. Thank you very much.